What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So as you can tell by a little bit of an intro, we are back working on the off-road mini quad, and we got a bunch of parts in the mail finally for this thing. So I think I got like 95-99% of all the parts we really need to get this thing running and driving. The only thing I'm really missing is like an aftermarket gas tank instead of keeping the stock style gas tank on the Honda GX200. But if you haven't seen the videos on this thing previously, picked this thing up for I think $100 I got this frame for. And then we ended up swapping in a Honda GX200. It's a 6.5 horsepower. Getting that all finished up. Got a custom seat made up for it. Did some custom framework because someone ended up chopping that all off. And we were just waiting for some parts at that point, which we ended up getting in. So we ended up getting just a cheap torque converter off Amazon. So I think it's like 50-60 bucks, nothing too crazy. I'm not really looking for crazy performance with a torque converter on this thing. I'm just really looking for the low end torque. Got some air filters, came in a 2 set, so I got 2 of those so I could use on any other project. Got some little chain tensioners in here so we can build a little chain tensioner for it, some hand grips, 420 chain, got a nice little pull start since we never had a pull start for this motor at all. So ordered that up. The red is definitely a little different, so I might end up needing to paint that up just to make it match or paint it black or something. Ended up ordering a full hydraulic rear caliper, got a center exit exhaust with a muffler on there, some gaskets and stuff, and then I got the throttle cable in that little bag there. So that's pretty much everything that we're gonna need to get this thing running and driving. And I'm just not sure how much we're actually gonna get done in today's video. Really, the goal is to try and drive it by the end of today's video, but we're gonna see. Kind of got a late start to this video. I think it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, and this video goes on Friday. So I got today, Wednesday, and Thursday to work on this thing, film everything, edit it up, and get it posted up for you guys on Friday. So I really want to get to work on kind of the main things that are going to take a little bit of time, which is the torque converter and the exhaust itself. So the torque converter, pretty simple. It just needs to get notched out all the holes where it actually bolts onto the engine, so we can kind of get the slot up as close to the bottom of the head there as possible. Give us enough clearance to clear all the drivers and pulleys and all that, and then have clearance for the chain as well. So that should be super easy. Done that before on my black off-road mini bike over there, so that shouldn't take too much time. Just a lot of drilling and getting shavings everywhere, so I kind of want to hold that off till later. But first, I really want to start with the exhaust here. So I ordered up the center exit exhaust, nothing too crazy. I think it was like 30 bucks. Came with a muffler on there. So this was the best kind of option I had for actually getting an exhaust for this thing. So you can kind of tell the port kind of comes out right by this bar here. You probably got like 2 or 3 inches of space in here. So I was hoping that we can kind of just wrap that thing around and shoot it right in between the frame and the coil over here. I want to try to keep the exhaust tucked inside the frame there as much as possible, because on my mini drift quad, kind of see it over there, I ended up burning my leg on it twice now, having the exhaust outside of the frame. So I want to try to tuck it in on this one, especially since going off-road. Probably going to hit some weird angles and stuff, so don't need to want to stress about burning my leg again. So I really want to get the exhaust tucked inside the frame as much as possible, and just doing a rough dry fit of this exhaust. It does not fit in there at all. It's kind of hitting the frame a little bit right here, but it's hitting the coilover a big time. So I really want to try to maybe unbolt the coilover, jack up the rear suspension, get the exhaust in there, and see how it's actually going to fit. So that's what I'm going to start messing with real quick. See what we get knocked out. Hopefully get the exhaust all finished up real quick, and then we can actually start working on all the other parts to actually install on this thing, and hopefully rip it around by the end of today's video. So catch you guys here in a little bit. I just wanted to show you guys a quick little dry fit of the exhaust before I modify anything so far. So I ended up just tossing this thing up on a jack real quick so I can kind of unbolt the top of the shock and swing it out of the way. And I got the exhaust up in here, so it's kind of hard to tell, but she is not sitting flat on the head there. And then she's also hitting this bar right there. And then it might be, I don't think I can do this in one hand, but kinda, I can get it close enough. But you can kind of tell that the exhaust is hitting the shock right there. So we're definitely gonna have to modify the end over here by the shock, which is not too bad. And I'm thinking for right now, maybe try to hit this with a hammer on the inside of the frame, see if I can just get that little bit, because it's just like a little 1/8 of an inch clearance that I really need to get it to seal 100%. And then if I can get that to seal up, we should be good to go. I might just end up chopping the end off the exhaust where the muffler actually threads inside of here, and just kind of pushing it past the shock here, And once I push it past the shock, I should be able to spin the muffler right in, have the muffler sitting right behind the shock there, and it should work perfectly. So I'm gonna knock this all out, and I'll catch up with you guys once I get this all finished up. So it's been a little bit, and I was able to get the exhaust to fit up without really too much modification, luckily. So I ended up just chopping off the whole little back end wherever the muffler kind of screws in there, so it's not running to the shock there, and then gave me kind of the clearance and bolted up. And then I literally just spent some time hammering that down, and the exhaust as well, grinding it down too, just to get that extra couple millimeters that I need. Got it to bolt up perfectly, so we're all solid there. And eventually I'll probably just end up chopping this little corner down just a little bit more, so we can kind of shoot it straight out in between here, and then we can still screw on the muffler later, because I still have that piece to screw on there. So now that the exhaust is all finalized, at least for now, for the first test drive or whatever, this will at least work straight piped, we can start working on the torque converter. So I just unboxed that out of the box, got an idea of what we're looking at here, got all the new parts there, and then the big main plate here. So really all I'm doing is just drilling in between the center hole to this next hole down, and just kind of slotting this all the way around, so then you're kind of able to twist the torque converter on the motor as you need to. I'm definitely gonna have to pull off this heat shield and notch it for the torque converter, but it's not too bad, I've done that before. So I'm just gonna spend some time, start drilling this torque converter out and notch that heat shield, get it all bolted up, and I'll show you guys once it's all finished up. What's up guys? So it's actually the next day. I think last night I left off unboxing the torque converter and saying I was gonna start working on it, getting it all mounted up onto the motor, drilling out the holes, notching what I need to, which I ended up doing. And I just had a few things I wanted to finish up today before I actually showed you guys, but I got her all installed on the frame here. We literally have like the littlest hair bit of clearance in between that, but she clears, so I'm happy about that. Literally just had to slot these 4 holes all the way around, so you're kind of able to twist the torque converter up towards the head. And then I had to grind down one of the fins on the bottom there where it's actually contacting the head, and then grind down like clearance the heat shield a little bit as well, and she fit up perfectly. So now we can actually start getting the driver put on there, get the belt installed, and actually hook up a chain finally. So I do have some chain tensioners here we're gonna have to install. So I do plan on putting one on the bottom here to just kind of keep the main chain tension with a spring and stuff on it. And then on the top here, it's gonna be kind of hard to tell, but the chain would be coming from the torque converter and literally grinding on the swing arm here to go down to the sprocket. So I'm gonna need some sort of roller guide just to keep it off the swing arm there. So I'm gonna end up drilling a little hole right in here, and then I can have a chain guide sit right above the swing arm there, let the chain go right over and around the torque converter and down, and then the bottom one should keep it all tensioned, especially once the suspension moves up and down and all that. So I'm gonna knock that all out real quick, and then I'll catch up with you guys here in a little bit, and then we can start knocking out all the little stuff to actually get this thing 100% finalized. So it's actually a few hours later. As you can tell, it is dark outside now. So I ended up working on the torque converter kit here, getting the belt installed, getting the main driver for the crankshaft installed. Everything's good to go on the engine here, so we should be good there. And then I started working on the chain tensioner, so I got a hole drilled, and then I got a little roller idler kind of sitting right above the swing arm, keep it from the chain right on the swing arm bolt there. And then on the bottom, I ended up just rebuilding this bottom one real quick, added a new roller on there, added a nice little spring going all the way to the top here, so that should be good to go there. And then I ended up chopping up a chain and going to install it, and I found out that this rear sprocket is not a 420 chain. It is very close, but it is not a 420 chain, and the chain just kind of just sits right on top of the teeth. It doesn't really go in the grooves all the way. So I'm gonna end up needing to swap a different sprocket on this thing. After doing some more research, I guess this Colster frame, only like 3 of these frames have this size sprocket and chain on it, so it's really weird. So I'm gonna end up needing to swap that over. I just gotta do a little bit more research to see how to actually pull this whole axle apart, because I noticed there's 2 lock nuts right here, but the sprocket actually bolts on from this way, so you really have to like pull this whole axle apart to get this sprocket to slide off that way. I would love to be able to slide it off this way if I could, just pull it off the wheel or something, but there's this big old flange right there and the sprocket ain't gonna go around it, so we're gonna have to end up pulling this all apart. I might have a sprocket sitting on the shelf over there that we might be able to use for this thing that is a 420 chain, but I gotta do a little more research on how to actually pull this whole axle apart, because I've never done that before. So tonight I want to at least finish up some of the little BS stuff that needs to get knocked out. So just really installing the rear brake caliper, which I'll probably just install the handlebar section for now and then mock up the caliper, so when we pull the axle apart, I ain't got to pull that off later. Got a new throttle cable, pull start, some grips, air filter, just a couple little things, get this thing all knocked out, and we'll see how much we can get. I'm hoping we can still test ride it by the end of this video, but there's a very low chance. We'll see what happens, but I'm gonna do some more research before I go to bed tonight and see what I can do tomorrow. Maybe you can try and drive it, but we'll see. So I'll catch you guys here tomorrow once we actually get a lot of these parts installed and back to work on off-road mini quad. What's up, guys? So it's the next day, and as you can tell, it is dark again. So I ended up doing a few things last night and then just kind of rolling over the rest of the stuff in today, and then I ended up knocking out all the rest of the small stuff. The only thing we really have left to finish is the rear sprocket, and after doing some more research, I do have to pull it all apart by pulling these two nuts apart and just kind of taking the rear brake caliper and disc off there to be able to pull this whole thing apart, which I don't have the right wrenches or like any sort of pipe wrench or something that unlock those things. So I'm gonna have to pick those up sometime either tomorrow or this weekend, which we are gonna end up knocking out this weekend because I am eager to ride this thing around. But other than that, we ended up knocking out all the rest of the small stuff. So this thing is pretty much ready to roll and ready to ride, other than that rear sprocket. So got the new rear hydraulic brake on there, so got the nice little hand grip up there, got it rolling it all the way down, even zip tied it all up nicely and bolted up onto the back there, even hooked up the new throttle cables, so that's all working perfectly. Everything's good to go on the engine. Finished up just bolting up a few things on the engine, like actually tightening down the engine bolts and stuff. Hooked up a little air filter just for right now, kind of close everything off, but we will redo this in the future. I want to 3D print a little different design I have and kind of test it out a little bit, and then we can actually relocate the filter kind of wherever we want on the bike. But then I ended up installing the new pole start, so everything's looking good there. The color is definitely not too far off, but it's definitely a little off, so I'll probably repaint that in the future. But other than that, this thing is pretty much ready to roll at this point. We just gotta get that rear sprocket all swapped out, but I am kind of running out of time. It is late on Thursday, and I gotta get this edited and posted up for you guys tomorrow. But this weekend, we are gonna get back to work on this, so expect Monday's video to at least maybe be test driving this thing and riding around, maybe take it out a little bit. So we'll see what happens, but for right now, we're pretty much to a standstill until we take apart that whole rear axle, but we'll knock it out later on. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, hope you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and peace out.